The dumbest thing Andy's school ever banned was letting your hair down. Last year, Andy and her friend were walking through the primary school building when they saw a girl with really long hair. She had it tied in a bun, but for some reason, she untied her hair. The vice principal saw this and, believe it or not, pulled her by her hair, dragging her into a corner. After she let the poor girl's hair go, she jabbed a hair tie in her face and said creepily, "Don't ever do that again." Then, she went back to where she was standing. To this day, she's still the most feared teacher in the school.
When Emoji worked at a bakery, a woman with about 7 kids came in. While she spent ages deciding on what to buy, her kids bounced around and bothered the other customers. She finally settled on a cheese and bacon pastry for herself and several plain sausages for her kids. The family sat outside. The mother checked her phone while her kids threw sausages all over the place, read them all over the windows, and screamed at each other. Finally, she came back in with the pastry with a single bite taken out of it and thrust it at Emoji, exclaiming loudly that it had gone dry. It was only as Emoji was washing the greasy sausage marks off the window that she realized that she hadn't even paid.
When Mkalem was 9 years old, he got punished for talking back to his parents. So, his weird punishment was that he was forced to go to school without his pants. He only wore a red long-sleeve shirt with a black and white t-shirt over it, and his tighty whities. He went to school dressed like that for an entire day, and was super embarrassed. Of course, the whole school started laughing at him. He had a group of 4 bullies, all older, come up to him and start calling him names such as Tidy Whitey Boy and 9-year-old No Pants. Mkalem started crying his eyes out and went to the principal to explain the whole thing. The principal caught the bullies and they were expelled. He then gave Mkalem a pair of denim pants to wear for the rest of the day, even though they were a little tight. Later that afternoon, everyone in the whole school saw him in the cafeteria and comforted him.
Helbin grew up in a small town where everyone was kind of redneck. When he turned 20, he moved to a larger town and got a job with the flooring company. He started falling for one of the girls in the office and thought he could impress her with his hunting skills. So when hunting season came around, Helbin and his brother went out and shot a 600-pound bear. Helbin brought the bear to the shop to skin it. Helbin's boss was a hunter too, so he allowed it. Helbin's crush came in and saw the huge bear strung up, and Helbin standing there with a knife covered in blood. She actually thought Helbin had been attacked by the bear and killed it with a knife. Helbin's boss backed up that version of the story, and she ended up asking Helbin out.
Turns out Ghost Toast's girlfriend was on crack, and one day while they were hanging out, she started yelling and saying the room was waving. Ghost Toast asked her what's wrong. She grabbed a huge knife out of her pocket and tried to stab him. He held her arms back, grabbed his phone and called the police. She was taken to juvie, but not before telling him, "We're through." Later, once she got out of juvie, she brought a ladder to Ghost Toast's house at 4 AM and climbed through his window to try to stab him again. If Ghost Toast hadn't been trying to watch every one of our Planet Dolan videos, he would have died. You hear that, kids? Planet Dolan saves lives.
One day, while home alone, Melissa was going through the mail when she noticed an envelope from her boyfriend. She started to blush, thinking it was a gift because her birthday was coming up. She opened it and found several pictures of her in the bathroom, changing. Melissa realized that the photos were taken the same day. She saw a note that said, "Happy birthday, I love you," that was written in blood. That was when Melissa heard something. She looked behind her and saw her boyfriend looking through the window. He had taken another picture of her. Melissa froze, freaking out while her boyfriend breathed into the window while giving her a strange smile. She told him to leave, but he just stood there. So, Melissa went to a room without any windows and locked the door. She called her parents and told them what happened. Her parents immediately came home and called the police, who later on said that they never found Melissa's boyfriend. However, they did find a picture of her. It was of Melissa reading the note. After that, Melissa and her family moved away, and she never saw him again.
Not that long ago, I was eating at a restaurant, and a guy with a guitar got on the stage. We figured it was the band, here to play some music, which was fine, but he starts talking. He's with his girlfriend, and he wants everyone to sing a song with him for her. He starts to play the song, and it's James Blunt, "You're Beautiful." He opens with the chorus, and that goes pretty well, because everyone knows the chorus. "You're beautiful, But he doesn't stop there, he just keeps going. I don't know if you guys know the rest of that song, but I didn't, and most of the people there sort of didn't really know. So while he's playing the whole rest of the song, nobody really knows the words, and we're all kind of just pretending to sing. Anyway, at the end, he got down one knee, and he proposed to her, and she said yes, which was lovely, but it was the most awkward thing I've ever experienced, I think.
When Gurgak was 6 years old, he was fascinated by his shadow and how it moved. He would flail his arms repeatedly, finding it a very fun thing to do. However, one day, he started noticing that his shadow looked like a weird monster, all distorted and evil whenever he moved his body. So, in order to intimidate the shadow monster, Gurgak began farting at it to make fun of it. This became a strange habit, and still to this day, whenever Gurgak sees his shadow anywhere, he will let out a quiet fart in its general direction.
I think the most embarrassing thing that somebody has seen me do is when my neighbor walked out of his house and beheld me trying to become a Super Saiyan in my backyard with my friend. We were standing there, face to face, screaming at the top of our lungs, calling out for the raw power of the ancient Saiyan bloodline to consume us in golden fury. Naturally, my neighbor had no idea what in the world we were doing, so he just thought we were freaks. And you know what? It was great.
During his freshman year, Nixiam was dating the cheerleading captain of the football team. After a few months in, she seemed like she was getting bored of Nixiam, so he decided to spice things up. He went to her dorm one night, wearing nothing but a long coat and a big curly bow around his dingus. He called her name, and when she walked into the kitchen, Nixiam dropped his coat and shouted, "Surprise!" A few seconds later, the football team's lead quarterback walked out of his girlfriend's bedroom. Nixiam realized he had just caught them cheating, and he just stood there, crying, with his junk in a ribbon.
When Spinal Palm was in high school, he was hanging out with his friends on the football team. They were eating pizza and talking, and one of the more buff guys took off his shirt and began fingering his belly button while he talked. When he took out his finger, it was covered in belly button lint. Then he said, "I dare somebody to eat this," and everybody looked at Spinal Palm. Of course he refused, but then the guy said, "If you eat this, we will all give you $10. The other guys agreed. Disgusted, Spinal Palm agreed, and the guy put the belly button lint in his hand. After staring at it for about a minute, while all the guys watched, Spinal Palm held his breath and quickly put the load of navel lint into his mouth. Everybody made a groaning sound when he did it. He was expecting a foul taste that would make him gag, but there was barely any taste at all. Spinal Palm swallowed the lint and quickly drank some soda to get that slightly bitter belly button taste out of his mouth. It was worth it, because he made $150.
When Mikhailin was 13, his friend Gurgak came over to spend the night. They were up all night when they heard what sounded like a woman's voice coming from down the hall. So they went to investigate and found Mikhailim's parents having sex. His parents didn't see him or Gurgak, so they slowly walked away. The next morning, when Mikhailim's parents came down for breakfast, Gurgak asked, "So, how was it?" They were confused, so Gurgak told them what he and Mikhailim saw the other night. Embarrassed, Mikhailim's parents grounded him for a reason unknown to him, while Gurgak wasn't invited over ever again.
Zaraganba had just gotten into a new school, and as he was walking into the classroom, he saw a cute girl. After a few months of school, Zaraganba got to know her a little better and decided to ask her out. And he decided the best way to do that was to create a scavenger hunt for her. He spent hours trying to come up with clever riddles and clues to help her along. He left notes scattered around the classroom, and sure enough, she found them. Finally, she found the last clue, which said, "Congratulations, you have found all 3 clues. Now is it safe to say which answer you will choose?" Zaraganba went up to her at that point and asked her out. She turned him down flat, and he became the laughingstock of the school for the entire 4 years he was there. Poor guy.
Nixiam was told some pretty weird advice from his mother when he was a teenager. They were having breakfast one morning when Nixiam's mum decided to dispense some random dating advice. "Nixiam," she said, "if you love someone, like if you really love them, tie 'em to a bed. If they don't find that shit completely kinky, then dump 'em and go back to the dating pool. Nixium just continued eating his cereal, unsure of how to respond to his mother's random advice.
One summer, Gurgak and Melon were having a lovely dinner at a restaurant when Gurgak's sister and young niece happened to walk by. His niece jumped to give Gurgak a hug, but accidentally kicked him straight in the nuts. When he turned around to walk it off, he stumbled into a pole that smashed into his dong. He screamed and pulled his pants down to make sure he hadn't done any serious damage to his equipment, forgetting that he was in a restaurant full of people. Surprisingly, he was okay and managed to laugh it off and enjoy the rest of his meal.
When I was in school, there was a troublemaking kid named Rex, who was our class clown. One day while collecting homework, my teacher approached him and of course, Rex did not have his homework with him. The teacher asked him where it was, frustrated and annoyed, to which Rex calmly responded, "Well, I did it, but Dan over there stole it from out of my backpack while he was fingering my butthole in the bathroom." The whole class burst into laughter, and can you believe it? Rex got detention.
When Pringle was little, he went on a school trip with 7 other kids. After a few hours on the train, he got really bored and started looking out the window. After 10 minutes of boring scenery, Pringle was horrified to see 2 people doing it in the middle of a public beach. The strange part was that they were wearing bizarre animal costumes. The guy was dressed as a blue cat and was using his dick to slap someone in a pink dog costume. Pringle didn't tell anyone because he didn't think they'd believe him. He just quietly shut the window and kept his mouth shut. Needless to say, it scarred him for life.
When Ramona was in preschool, she was play fighting with her friend. The fight got a little bit out of hand and she decided to bite her friend's arm. Her friend jumped and yelled, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Ramona had accidentally broken the skin and her mouth was full of blood. To her surprise, the blood tasted amazing. A teacher came and broke up the fight, and all Ramona could think about for months was how good the blood tasted. She never bit anyone again, but sometimes she thinks about it a little too much.
Dolop had fallen asleep many times before in class inside his hoodie that was 2 sizes too big for him. One night, before a midterm test, he decided to go to bed early instead of studying. On the way out the door, Dolop grabbed a hoodie and an extra t-shirt. He shoved the t-shirt into the hood and stuck his phone in the pocket. When he got to class, he started the test, and whenever the teacher wasn't looking, Dolop pulled his hood over his head and tucked his head inside. He then used the phone in the hoodie. To this day, he still uses that method and has never been caught.
One time when he was in 4th grade, Captain was at the barber shop with his brother and stepfather. He was looking around since he had left his phone at the house. Then, Captain saw a toddler bury his face in his mother's boobs. It even looked as though he was enjoying it. So his mother spanked him and said not to do it. When they left, they climbed into their car and saw the mother spanking her son again. To this day, Captain and his brother joke about it.
While shopping for yarn in a craft store, Andy overheard another customer, an old lady, telling an employee they needed to carry more sexy fabrics. When the employee asked what she meant by sexy fabrics, the woman said, you know, fabric with sexy printed people on it. All that shiny leather looking stuff. The old lady had a good attitude and was really cheerful, so the employee just laughed and said, check back in a week or so. Andy doesn't know what the lady wanted to make, but she still bought fabric that day.
Nixium's cringiest school memory happened when he was in 6th grade. He had this huge crush on a girl in his class, but had no game whatsoever. Every time she looked in his direction, Nixium would turn his head away really obviously and refuse to make eye contact. It was so bad that sometimes he'd stare at a wall while walking down a corridor just to avoid looking at her. Obviously, Nixium's crush noticed him, and one day she straight out asked him, "Why do you never look at me?" Nixium was trying so hard to be cool that he shrugged his shoulders and said,
I don't know, babe. Because I'm bored.
The girl took this as a sign he didn't like her, and basically never talked to him again. Luckily, Nixium has gotten a lot better with the ladies since then.
When he was in 6th grade, Spinal Palm had a crush on a girl, Princess Proton, who was in his class. At the time, he didn't know what a lesbian was, so he asked his big brother, who then said, "You are." The next day, Spinal Palm asked her out. Instead of saying,
"Hey, do you want to go out with me?"
he said,
"Do you want to go out with a lesbian?"
As he asked her this, he pointed to himself. Everyone laughed, but it ended up working out. She said yes, and they've been together ever since.
One day in French class, Legna had to pair up with his crush for a role-playing exercise. They had to pretend that they were boyfriend and girlfriend, which made Legna super uncomfortable because he wanted her to be his actual girlfriend. While they were finishing up the exercise, Legna summoned up all his courage and asked his crush out in French. He was shaking with nerves, and sweat was dripping off him as he waited for her answer. Unfortunately, Legna's crush thought he was just asking as part of the exercise, so she laughed, shrugged, and walked out of the room. As Legna walked out alone, his teacher threw salt in his wound by saying, "Better luck next time," in French. Oh, poor Legna. I know exactly how you feel. Oh wait, no I don't.
When Sid was 19, he was working at Walmart stocking stuff on the shelves when a big sweaty woman came up to him and yelled, "Hey, shithead! Where the fuck are the bathrooms?" To which he responded,
Why are you yelling?
and she replied, "Because I have to take a massive shit." He pointed and said,
The toilets are to your right.
She wiped her forehead and said, "Thank you, sir," while holding her stomach. After a while, Sid was called to clean the women's bathroom. To his horror, the toilet and the walls were completely covered in shit. He still has nightmares about it to this day.
While returning from vacation in Wisconsin Dells, Melissa and Ladybot were driving in their van when suddenly it started to gain speed without explanation. Melissa pressed both claws down on the brakes, but they did absolutely nothing. She had to shut the engine off and glide onto a side road for a mile while gravity slowed them down from 97 miles an hour. The freaky part is that there was no explanation, and the car hasn't done it since. Knock on wood.
When Nixium was about 8 or 9, he got very hungry one day and decided to go to the kitchen and make himself the weirdest sandwich ever. It had tomatoes, 5 different types of cheeses, onions, green and red peppers, ham, bacon, chicken, steak, ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, 1 bar of chocolate, sausage, and pickles. It turns out that Nixium got food poisoning because the chocolate he ate was 2 months past its expiration date. When she was 11, Gooby was playing tea party with her baby sister, Snoopy. They filled the cups with actual sweet tea and began drinking it while eating raisins. Suddenly, Gooby accidentally spilled her tea all over the brand new carpet. She didn't want to tell her parents, so she covered it up with Snoopy's toy box. A few days later, their mom was vacuuming when she moved the toy box and saw the stain. She blamed Gooby since Snoopy was too little to even pour tea. Instead of doing something like taking her tablet away, Gooby's mom made her lick it off the carpet, not wanting to risk getting yelled at anymore. Gooby obeyed. She ended up getting carpet fibers and hair all over her tongue. She didn't get the stain out, making her mom yell at her again. In the end, her mom just put Snoopy's toy box over the stain and ignored it. Gooby still feels a little tickle in the back of her throat from licking that carpet. Ew. Hellbent was sitting in his algebra class one day. He had just dumped his girlfriend, who was taking the same class. Just then, his ex-girlfriend stripped naked and then started screaming at the top of her lungs and pulling out her hair. Then she twerked in the teacher's face. When she was done, she looked at Hellbent and asked, while sobbing, "Why did you dump me?" He answered, "That's why, because you're a psychotic." Pringle's brother once convinced him that if he ever had any wine, he would die within 5 minutes. His brother told him that lie because Pringle kept stealing sips of their mom's expensive wine. A few weeks after his brother told him that lie, Pringle tripped over something and landed on a counter. He knocked over a wine bottle and, somehow, the wine spilled into his mouth. He flipped out, but his brother told him that in order to keep him from dying, he had to run outside in only his underwear and scream,
"I'm Sonic the Hedgehog!"
3 times. After doing what he was told to do, Pringle's brother told him the truth.
One summer, Shima and her family went to Florida for her aunt's wedding. They went to the beach, but Shima, being a cat and all, didn't really want to go in the water. So she just sat by where the snacks were. Eventually, Shima thought, why not, and went in the water. She walked out into the ocean pretty far, past her cousins. Suddenly, she lost all her energy by fighting the waves just to get out there. The tide came in, and Shima found herself about a foot underwater. She didn't panic, and was able to get to the surface and call out for help. Her brother saw that she was in jeopardy, but just stood there staring at her. Shima's mum and cousins were talking, and the lifeguard was too busy talking on his phone. After drowning for about 2 minutes, Shima was rescued by a very tall man she had met prior to the incident. As he brought her to shore, Shima and the man saw the lifeguard sitting there still glued to his phone. However, nobody would walk with her to tell his supervisor that he was slacking off. To this day, Shima still holds a grudge over that so-called lifeguard.
Nixium secretly has a fear of his own potential to do bad things. Nixium thinks of himself as generally a good person who always tries to be helpful and never wants to hurt anyone. But sometimes he's afraid he could eventually snap and just kill someone. He keeps thinking one tiny little push could send him into darkness. But Nixium also believes that fear is proof that he still has a conscience, so hopefully that will keep him from the dark side.
Snoopy bet her friend $30 to sing It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Murder during a school talent show. That might seem tame, but their school was a very conservative and strict Catholic school, so singing that in front of a bunch of nuns in the facility was kind of a big deal. Snoopy's friend got called to the guidance counselor and ratted Snoopy out for the bet, so Snoopy was sent in too and both their parents were called. Long story short, they were both grounded. Snoopy's mom monitored the website she visited for a while and her friends stopped hanging out with her because her parents said Snoopy was a bad influence.
Melissa worked at a call center for about 1.5 years for a cell phone company. There was a training class where they had side-by-sides. That's where the trainee listens to your call and learns from it. So she got a call and said to normal,
Thank you for calling in today. My name is Melissa. How can I help you?
After working there for so long, Melissa would get responses ready for all types of customers. After she told her,
There will be a silence on the phone, but I'm here and working on fixing your problem.
Melissa ran tests on the phone and talked to the trainee about what to do. The lady said, out of nowhere, My sister is dead, in a calm voice. Melissa and the trainee just looked at each other. She didn't know what to say except,
I'm sorry to hear that.
She said, Today is the anniversary of my twin's death. Sometimes I think I'm her pretending to be me, but I am me. On mute, Melissa and the trainee didn't know what to do. Laugh, be sorry, anything. So Melissa fixed her problem, gave her a credit, and hurried off the call.
In the late 90s, early 2000s, Ligna used to hang out at a club called the Lizard Lounge, which had goth night every Thursday and Sunday. One time he looked down at the dance floor and saw 2 guys kicking the living shit out of each other. The bouncer ended up having to escort them out. Ligna later found out they were fighting because one guy insulted the way the other guy applied his eyeshadow.
One time, Nixium was sitting down watching TV when his dog walked over and sat in front of the TV, staring at him. It got creepy real quickly, so he told him to stop. But the dog just kept staring, so he tried to scare him off. But that just made him mad. And suddenly, he bit down so hard on Nixium's big toe, he could feel his fangs touching the bone. Nixium screamed and the dog stopped. He had to have stitches in his foot for a whole month, and Nixium's father spanked the dog for being so aggressive.
Hellbent's middle school banned the red pen. If a red pen was used, students would get suspended from school. It all started with one kid, Nixium, telling his parents that he did not like the red pin marks that the teachers did on their tests or classwork. So one day, the parents went to the school and talked to the teachers and principal about the red pins. The next day, red pins were banned. No one, not even the teachers, could use a red pen. Instead, everyone had to use a black or blue pen.
What's the time I was caught naked? Oh jeez, man. Oh Christ. There was one time, one awful time. I was taking swimming lessons back when I was around about 10 or 11. And, you know, you have the private little locker rooms, male and female. And so I went in there. And at that point, I came in late. So everyone else had already changed. Everyone else is fine. So I went into the bathroom and I was like, well, you know, no one around. I guess I can just real quick just change into my bathers. You know, no issues there, huh? Well, Well, the thing is, what happened was someone else came late. Someone else came late, and it wasn't a boy. It was a girl, and I think it might have been her first day or something, because she walked into the wrong bathroom, my bathroom, the one where I was getting changed completely naked. Just for a few seconds, she happened to come in. The few seconds I was completely naked. She walked in, she didn't say shit, alright? I barely even noticed she was there. I heard a rustling, I looked around, I saw a girl looking at my dick, I was like, huh, that's not right. That's not an ideal situation for me to be in. So, before I could even cover myself, she just vanished, okay? She just walked away. I got changed in my bathers, like, okay, my life's over, alright. So I walked out into the pool, didn't see that girl, never saw her again. I think she got so scared or intimidated, I felt a little bit responsible for that. Yeah, it's not a happy memory. I don't know how she mixed up the male and female signs. I would love to know. If you're out there, girl, who happened to see me naked that one time, let me know. How the fuck did you mix up the dude with just the knot and the girl with the dress on the side? I don't... Okay.